Okie doke. Yes.
When you say, when you vow, say you vow to not lie,
Yes.
but then you lie to protect someone. So
Okay, I understand that. I understand it very well. Okay, now if we look at these three different levels, these first two levels, the very first level of vows, it's very strict. There's no wiggle room because we're trying to really discipline ourselves, not trying to get around things. Just have a good, strong discipline and try not to kill, not to lie, not to steal. So if you do it consciously with a good motivation, there's still some mistake there in this level. But at the bodhisattva vow level, if you have those, you have a vow to lie, if it's for the benefit of somebody. So you've got to know what level you're doing. So, so sincerely, according to the first level of vows, there's no wiggle room. Do you understand my point? Mm-hmm. But the next level, if it's genuinely for the sake of another. But I would suggest with that, we very often will say something that we think is for the person's benefit, but it's to protect ourselves because we're afraid. If it is genuinely for their benefit, absolutely, of course, it's an excellent action. According to the bodhisattva level. Do you understand?
Oh, sorry, I get it.
You understand?
Yeah.
But the aim is to, at the first level, because they've got different levels, there's different kind of framework for these different levels of practice. The first level is very strict, discipline, clear, strong. Don't do this, don't do that. For your own sake, for your own sake. So there, if you can be wise, there's a way of still saying something that isn't lying, but just to be wise in how you speak. So it's the same thing, you have to think twice before you say something. So at the bodhisattva level, where the main thing that causes you to break your vow is the motivation for doing it. So in other words, one lot of the vows in the bodhisattva vows, because quite a few, would be in relation to practicing generosity. And so for example, if you ring me up and invite me out for dinner, but I just can't be bothered. I say, I'm so busy, darling, I'm not talking about the lying part, but I break a bodhisattva vow because I prevent you from creating the generosity of offering me a meal. Do you understand? So these vows forcing you to think of what's best for the other. And this is very sincere. It's genuinely what's best for the other. There you would happily lie if it's truly for the sake of another. So in this case, for me, if my motivation's good, like I'm sick and I can't come, that's not breaking a vow. But if I just do it out of laziness and I'm not thinking of you, then I break a vow. So it's a different whole kettle of fish when you do the bodhisattva vows. So in other words, the whole thing all the time across the board is forcing us to be so responsible with our body and speech, and then when it comes to the next level of practice with our mind, which we'll talk about tomorrow. Do you understand? Yeah. It's really important. Yes.
So I really love the analogy with the seeds in terms of karma and planting and the fruits, etc. And what I also love is the starting point with Buddhism of don't take my word for it, prove it for yourself, see how it works.
That's right, exactly.
So how do you reconcile the two? Because we don't, at this point, I don't have a memory of past lives.
No, of course not. That's right. Most
and I'm not necessarily going to see the fruits of my seeds immediately.
No, you won't.
Not a cause and effect.
That's right.
So
how do you prove it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's not complicated. It's easy. We're not used to thinking of it like this.
Yes.
So, if you go to listen to Einstein's teachings, he tells you about relativity.
Yeah.
It's quite advanced, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you can't possibly prove it to be true yet, can you?
No.
So, okay, what would you do exactly? What's your first step? What would you do? In the long term, to prove it to be true, where would you start?
I would ascertain his credibility.
That's the first step. Yeah. Then what would you do?
And make sure that I was confident that there were enough other people.
No, that's just blind. That's checking up. This is the first step you must do.
Yeah.
This is checking up the intellectual. You can have some intellectual certainty.
Correct.
But you haven't proven it to be true for yourself.
No.
So what would you have to do to prove it to be true for yourself? Darling, it's easy. You study it.
Oh, okay.
There you go. It's not complicated, is it?
No.
But first, before you waste years of going off to physics university and having a dumb teacher, you've got to check. And it's the same as I said about my mum.
Yeah.
You first check the credibility. You've got to have intellectual certainty first, and that's really vital.
Right.
Now, the Buddha's teachings, and all the people since the time of the Buddha, are saying there's hundreds, if not thousands of people who have proven reincarnation, who have proven karma. But we just go, nah, they're making it up. We don't look at the evidence. We don't have any intellectual certainty. And then we don't bother doing the work. We just say it's all blind belief because we're just so rude. But it's exactly the same.
Okay.
It is no different. And if you really do practice well, you can go off to the mountains and get single point of concentration. And because you're going to access a subtle level of your mind, that level of mind has the power to see the past and future. And you can prove it in a couple of years.
Gotcha.
If you follow the steps.
Yep.
But don't waste your time. Check on the teachers, check on the thing. It's exactly the same. And but the first is, but don't discount the importance of the first stages. So in the world, it's easy to find lots of people who, by reputation, have indeed agreed with Einstein. And so we get real confidence from that. But we tend to leave it there and say, oh, it's science, but it's not your science. It's merely belief from our point of view. So, but it's still necessary. So that's the first point. The next one is this. Let's just use something like acupuncture. Actually, they talk about, this is a whole process you go through when you start to study something. They discuss this in the teachings. So the first step, let's just say acupuncture is true, but you don't know it yet. You've never heard of it 60 years ago, and you hear these weird wacko Chinese people who stick needles in you. Do you understand? It's like, the first level is don't be ridiculous. Do you understand? But let's assume it is true. So the first step is wrong view. You just don't believe, it's a load of rubbish, because you've never heard of it before. But you've got an open mind.
Yep.
So the next step is you start to think about it and look into it a little bit. You do your research. And then you start to waver slightly, and you have doubt. But your doubt is only small, so this is doubt tending towards the wrong view. You go, oh, maybe it's true. Ah, no, it can't be true. But you've got an open mind, and you're looking at it. You keep moving, you keep doing it, and you begin to study it even now. So now you start to get a bit of certainty, but now you have doubt tending towards the right view. Well, maybe it's true after all. Not just cross your fingers, but analysing it, looking into it, seriously doing the work. And this is the process you go. Then, process you go through. So then, you do more work, more internalizing, more learning of it. You get to the point where you now have correct belief. That you're so certain, but it's not only believing, you haven't got enough proof yet, even intellectually. And then eventually with more work, more analysis, and you're studying acupuncture, you start to learn this meridian, this one. And in the beginning, when you hear about a meridian, it's like my mum with 2 eggs in the cake. I've got no idea that it's right, but I've got to have faith in her, because I've checked. Same here. You don't go, oh, what do you mean meridians, you know? You take it as a hypothesis as a meridian. And as you start to study it, and this is my point now, as you start to study it theoretically, you get more and more certain. You even get to the point where you can have inferential certainty, which means as you're studying it, you start to hear about this thing over here, and this, and as you're studying this whole world view, and if it is a valid system, it's coherent in itself. You understand? Not just hit and miss, cross your fingers. Then the point is this: before you stick a needle in anybody, you could pass an exam in acupuncture. You could even explain it to someone else if the system is valid. So that means, if a system is valid, if Buddhism is a valid worldview within itself, in its own logic, if acupuncture is a valid system, then first it has to be coherent theoretically. And there can be huge certainty from that. So like if you've never heard of a place called Melbourne, or we're in Melbourne, aren't we? Yeah, we're in Melbourne. Let's say Iceland. Never heard of it. You never studied geography. That'd be ridiculous. A place living up on the top of this, moon somewhere, ice. That'd be ridiculous. But you start studying geography and maps. You don't have to be anywhere. You can still be in Melbourne, studying maps, analysing, listening to people who've been there. You can prove it exists. You can even give me the method to get there, and you still haven't been there yet. That's intellectual certainty. Then when you go there, that's experiential certainty. And you can't go there if you haven't got a map. So map is the intellectual certainty. Every system is the same. But we're not used to thinking of religion as a system that's coherent. Just cross your fingers and hope for the best. That's the point. So that's why intellectual certainty is really powerful. Every time for me, every time I so-called teach, I'm a teacher, I do my best. But every time I talk about these things over the years, because if it is a system, it's all coherent. Everything links to everything else. It's a completely coherent system. So every time I think about karma, then every now and more I think about it, that helps me with emptiness. Every time I think about this one, it helps me about compassion. Whenever I think about compassion, it helps me with they all support each other if it's a coherent system. So every time you speak it and study it, your knowledge of it gets deeper and deeper, and all that you join the dots, and it becomes more and more confidence in you, in coherence. Then you can get the experience in meditation. And it's then, if you get the single point of concentration, following the steps, and you prove with your clairvoyant mind that there's no such thing, then you've proven Buddha wrong. You see my point? That's the process. That's how you'd learn anything, quite frankly. Even when you go to school, she tells you 1 + 1 is 2. You have to take it on face value. You've got to trust her. You memorise it, you go home, and then she says, go and prove it, please. That's doing your homework. You make it your own experience. All the way to Buddhahood, it's exactly the same. When we know this, you can take it at a much more relaxed level. 1 step at a time, 1 step at a time. And be delighted with your progress. Grade 1, grade 2, as you go, And as the Dalai Lama always says to us, if you can prove later that it's wrong, like I just said, you must reject the Buddha. And that's where it's not just belief. Belief will never get you anywhere. Do you understand?
Totally.
Good, I'm very happy. Okay. 409. I just think we'll talk about how we purify karma. Then we can go home. You don't have to be here till 5:30. You don't have to. I mean, if I was Lama Zopa, I'd keep you till midnight. But I couldn't do that. I value my reputation too much. I couldn't do it to you. And not because I'm noble. I'm nervous you dislike me, you see. Lama Zopa doesn't mind. Okay. 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 Okay, what am I saying? Okay, let's purification. Purification. I'm losing the plot.
How you purify karma.
That's exactly right, thank you. All right. So, given that every millisecond of what we think and do and say leaves seeds in our mind, programs our mind, and it's not set in stone, and there's no karma that can't be changed, because it all comes down to conceptuality. We're going to talk more about that tomorrow. Then it follows we can purify it, because if you've, and purification just simply means you change it. So let's say you're playing the piano and you play the wrong note. Mr. Bach says play this one, but you played the wrong one. The first step is to acknowledge that you did it. Oh, played the wrong note. That's called regret. But we have such drama because we call it guilt. I'm a bad person. I'm going to kill myself. I played the wrong note. No, it's always much ridiculous. You have to first acknowledge you played the wrong note before you fix it, isn't it? If you keep insisting you didn't play the wrong note, then you're lost. Forget it. So you've got to first step is acknowledge you did something. So here we're talking about doing something with our body and speech based on a delusion, the first level, that harms another. So we do this practice at the end of the day, and as Lama Zopa says, we're insane not to do it every day. When we understand the psychology of it, that makes a lot of sense. So the Lamas always use the analogy of taking poison, eating poison. That's a good one. Why not? So it's a good one because we know that poison means if you have it, you'll get sick, meaning there are dire consequences for you if you eat poison. That's the analogy here. So, and again, remembering it's got nothing to do with punishment and reward and being considered a bad person, which is a big stumbling block for us. So the first step is to acknowledge that I did things that are labelled negative, which are actions I've done to harm others. The very first level is that. So in this life, maybe today, so you do it at the end of the day, so maybe you check your day, And I think it's really good to do this practice in a very simple way, not with all the holy things and your bells and your dramas and your Sanskrit words. You get confused. Keep it really experiential. It really is a practice that's for your benefit. You've got to think this. For me, it's like becoming your own friend, doing a bit of therapy at the end of the day, and you're the boss talking to yourself. It's really important to hear it this way, not just as religious, not as a religious practice, Otherwise we're so too distant from it. So the first one, regret, there's 4 R's: regret, reliance, the remedy, and resolve. It's a good way to remember. And as someone even pointed out to me, even that's in alphabetical order. R-E-G, regret. Reliance, R-E-L. Remedy, R-E-M. Resolve, R-E-S. I didn't notice it before. It's all alphabetical. Never mind. So the first one is you acknowledge you did this dumb action. Oh my God, I did bad mouth my boyfriend. Oh my God, I did kill the dog. Whatever I did this. I spoke bad. I mean, simple things. If you killed your mother as well, then you better regret that too. But whatever you've done this day, and we all, I think it's very simple. We all know throughout the day, because we all have busy lives. We're in the traffic. We go to deal with lots of people. We're at school. We're here. We're home with the mum and dad, partners, children. We have a very dynamic activity all day, and it's inevitable because we're not bodhisattvas. We're going to do dumb things. I mean, yeah, rape and kill too, but simple things without mouths usually, So then we wonder why we're exhausted by the end of the day, because we haven't dealt with our problems. We haven't sorted it out. So this is a time to sort it out and kind of clean yourself up, Like you used to do with your old-fashioned days on an Apple. You clean up your desktop. I don't call it that anymore. So regret means you check at the end of the day. You kind of relax, sit down, and you check the day. What have I done with my body and speech to harm sentient beings? It's not that complicated. You've just got to be very practical about it. It's like, if you're trying to watch your nutrition, what did I eat today that isn't good for me? Mm-hmm. I had that sugar, this one, and then you would go, I regret that. You know why, Rabina? Because I don't want sickness. You've got to be very honest with yourself. You've got to be very sincere, So the biggest problem we have is we say we did this and we did that, and we go, oh, I'm a bad person. So this is why His Holiness, and I quote this repeatedly, someone asked one time His Holiness, what's the difference between regret and guilt. So guilt, as he said, so simple. You look in the past and you go, I did this and I did that and I did this, and then you go, and I'm a bad person. It's your conclusion, and that's an automatic response of ego grasping. We do that automatically. And it's really what it is anger, but you're the object. So you listen to anger. You did this, Ed, and you did that, and you did that. Blame, anger, and then you conclude, and you're a bad person. So that's what all delusions do, and we're going to talk about this tomorrow. What delusions, one of their clear functions, is you point out a fault, and then anger over-exaggerates the whole of the person and paints the whole of the person based on those three actions. So we say the whole of Ed is a bad person. And this is exactly what we do with ourselves with guilt. It's so clear. You did this action, this action, this action, just three things. Then you paint the whole of yourself as bad. Therefore, I'm a bad person. And it's completely irrational and invalid. The Christians have a lovely way to say it. They say, don't criticize the sinner, criticize the sin. And exactly what the Buddhists are saying. It's the anger that's the problem that's hurting you. It's the jealousy, it's the killing and the lying and the raping and the stealing or whatever. They're the things that are a drag. And they're dragging you down. So it should be such compassion for yourself. Like why you regret you ate the sugar. Oh my God, I'm a fool. I don't want to get sick. It's compassion for yourself. You acknowledge it and you regret it. I don't want to do that. I don't want the suffering. That's what regret is. It is like compassion for yourself. It's quite literally true. But because this doesn't come automatically, we have to cultivate it by saying the words. I did do this, and I did do that, and I did badmouth it, and I did say that. And you got to not defend yourself. Well, it's not my fault. It's not the issue here. He's got his problems. I've got mine. I own mine. And you're talking to yourself here. You're being your own therapist, I tell you. It's nothing to do with God. You bring the Buddha in later, but it's a difference too. So you acknowledge. And it's like a relief to yourself, for God's sake, we're going to give yourself a break, you know. I did this, and I did that, and I did get angry. So, okay, this is mainly actions of body and speech first that harm others, but also at the same time, you've got to acknowledge all the rubbish inside. All the craziness and jealousy and hurt and the pain and the dramas and the paranoia that are poisoning us. This really does demand attitude of not guilt, as Dalai Lama said. Guilt, you look in the past, I did this, and then you say I'm a bad person. But he said regret, you look in the past, same, I did this, and I did that, and I did this. But then you say, what can I do to fix it? It's so simple, you know. But we have to consciously, actively say that. And that's implying it's not set in stone, nothing to do with being a bad person. It's because you're sick of the suffering. You don't want the consequences. You have to think this way. It's really intelligent. Like the poison one. No way. I mean, you've got to acknowledge you've eaten poison. And you don't go, oh, I ate poison, I'm such a bad person. You get sicker every day, I'm a bad person, I'm getting more sick, and I'm a bad person. Utterly useless. A waste of time, and it's self-hate, and it's really horrible, it's horrible. Don't go there. You have to consciously change this, because it happens so automatically. This is really deep, you know. It goes so instinctively. So you regret this day, then you think of the things in this life, you know. We had this conversation back in Bendigo, and there was a long discussion I had with Andrew about this one. So we use the same example again. I had an abortion when I was 23. At the time, I had no other choice. I didn't think about it. I knew I didn't want what came out the other end, a person. It was so instinctive for me. I never did it again before or since. I didn't think of it as a person. I didn't think of it as a consciousness. I was a hippie at the time. I just knew I didn't want a baby. It was really clear. So if I analysed that, what did I do? So, okay, Buddha would say that sentient being, at the time of its death, created the karmic seed, to come to my womb, was already established in that person's mind a few weeks before, when they died. Now they're in the intermediate state, this person, and they're waiting for me to hop into bed with somebody. Well, I did. I hopped into bed with a bloke, an Australian, in Earl's Court. He was an architect, and he got £1 an hour. I'll never forget that. It was in 1968, I was 23, and I got £13 a week. I'm really impressed by his £1 an hour. I remember that. I remember those things. But I didn't like him much. I thought, I'm a hippie, so you do what hippies do. You're kind to people and you drop into bed, what you do. Whatever. So all I know is I vividly remember that moment. This is interesting about karma. I mentioned this. I knew that second in that bed in Earl's Court. Oh no, I said to myself, I'm pregnant. Many people say this. Women have said this. A friend of mine, she was staying with her mum, staying with her husband at her mum's house, while she and the husband were waiting for their house to finish, to get built, right? And the girl came to breakfast and said, Mum, I'm pregnant. And the mother said, oh, great, when did you discover that? She said, 40 minutes ago. Have you ever had that experience, women? Have you got pregnant? Many women say that. Men sometimes even too. It was crystal clear. She didn't think about it. She doesn't think about these things about reincarnation. She just that second knew she was pregnant. The same with me. It was very interesting. So right there, anyway, now think of this now. This is my point. We had a discussion with Andrew, a long discussion. The meaning of regret. We misunderstand it. It was a really good discussion we had because we got it. I think we got it clear, didn't we, Andrew?
Mm-hmm.
Did you get it clear? Okay. So the clarity is this. There I was, say in 1968, and I knew nothing about cigarettes causing cancer. There's an analogy. So we know in the ordinary world certain things cause sickness, and we get that. There's no drama, no guilt about that. So let's say I didn't know, and I didn't know. I was smoking bucket loads of cigarettes in between my marijuana, you know, and in between my speed. I was having all these Marlboros. So I didn't know that. I didn't think about cancer. So let's just say later on, now let's say, I learn about cancer, and I go to the doctor and I realise I've got the symptoms, you know, then I will say, you know, God, and I'm still smoking, let's say. So I'm still smoking. Forget it, whether I'm 70, it doesn't matter, but after it. Then I suddenly hear that smoking can cause cancer, which means suffering for me. And then I'll go, my God, what a fool. I didn't realise back then. I didn't realise that smoking would cause me cancer. What a fool. I didn't know. I wasn't informed. I didn't know that action I did then actually continues all the way up, you know, as I'm doing it now still, is causing me suffering. I didn't know that. So you're not saying, well, I didn't know any better at the time, so why should I regret it? No, of course you regret it because the seed you planted is still growing in your mind. That's the point. So you recognise you were limited at the time. I didn't have any other, at the time it just happened. I don't remember any other choices. It was never a choice in my mind. I just decided to have this abortion. So with my Buddhist view now, I have the view that it was a consciousness, that I made a decision to abort the baby, kill the baby. That's right, I did the action, so I sowed a seed. Maybe it wasn't that negative because I didn't have hate for the baby. We don't if you ever have an abortion. But it was self-centered, absolutely for sure. So then I sowed a negative seed. So this is the point. I didn't know better at the time. So you're not saying I shouldn't have done it. That's not regret, that's meaningless. But I did do it, and it did sow the seed, and the seed is growing. I did smoke those cigarettes, and it is injuring my lungs. So then I go, what a fool. I didn't realise I did it. It maybe was the only thing I could do at the time. I didn't know any better. So you regret your foolishness, you regret your ignorance, but you have sown a negative seed. You have, because karma takes care, it's a natural law. Whether you think cigarettes will give you cancer does not mean you'll get cancer or not get cancer. It's a natural law that cigarettes could cause cancer, whether you know it or not. Knowing it is not the issue. It's a natural law. That's the point about karma too. So killing a human being, which I did, and of course there's a million variations of killing a human being. A fetus is not nearly as bad as killing a live person because probably there's less suffering. But on the other hand, my baby, they didn't pull it out properly. I had to have another D&C because the forceps, the poor little thing got all mangled and didn't all get taken out. That's kind of heavy, isn't it? So, you know, whatever. So I regret it because I didn't know any better. And so now I know the seed is growing and I want to finish that seed. I want to clean it up. I want to get my cancer. I want to start stopping cigarettes. So the next thing I'll do, I will say I won't do it again, but I'm going to try, I must fix the result of that and make sure I stop smoking cigarettes so I stop making a mess of my lungs. So it's a practical, not moralistic, it's practical. And then of course if it's hard for us to own responsibility for that, the motivation we had at the time, we look at it now and maybe we decide, yes, it was a self-centered motivation. But what we try to do is we try to get ourselves off the hook, but it wasn't my fault, we'll say. And we have to be honest. We made a choice and karma drove us to make that choice. We have to be honest and to own it. No one's going to beat us up. No one's going to punish us. We're punishing ourselves. So it demands honesty to do that. Whereas we tend to say, oh, it wasn't my fault. I couldn't help it, because we don't want to be sincere with ourselves. We don't have to beat ourselves up. That's not what's being said. But if the seeds are growing, you want to stop the seeds growing. So it's practical. You've got to own it. So it's a tricky one, you know. Are we communicating here?
Yeah.
It's your own sake here. There's no discussion about compassion yet for this baby. That comes second step to the first one. So you think of the things you've done in this life. You've cheated on your partners, you've badmouthed, all the things we do with our body and speech, come on, you know. We're not mind being Hitlers. You acknowledge them. You did it. What an idiot. I sowed those negative seeds. I want to clean up those dumb seeds. I don't want to do it. I don't want to have this again growing in me. It's very simple. It's practical. It's practical, not moralistic. It's self-preservation. It's self-respect. It's kindness to yourself. Because you don't want those seeds to ripen in the future. Okay, so then the next step, and then you can go, if you like, if the idea of previous lifetimes makes sense, you then go, and you know what? I regret whatever I've done. with my body and with my speech since beginningless time to harm sentient beings. I regret the depths from the depths of my heart because I don't want future suffering. It's for you, for you, for you. It's so important. Then you can think about your mind, your stupid old delusions, your attachment, your jealousy, your craziness, your paranoia, your anger, which just harms you. You regret that because you're sick of the pain, you're sick of the suffering. Then next step, you think, well, whom can I turn to? Where's the doctor? It's very simple. Whom can I turn to rely upon, to give me the medicine that I can take to heal myself? And this again is where the huge difference, just for clarity's sake, between the view of a creator. So if I'm a Catholic, I would regret, and then I would confess to my creator. And then the second step would be I would beg him to forgive me, because that's what purifies you. It's God's forgiveness. Well, we rely upon the Buddha, but not to forgive us. That's like going to your doctor and asking you to forgive you for smoking cigarettes, hoping that that'll cure your cancer. It doesn't work like that. That's ridiculous. But you rely upon the doctor to give you the advice and the medicine that you can use to purify your past rubbish and to prevent you. It's preventative and curative, you know. So the doctor's the one you rely upon, but it's you who do the work. It's you who do the work. So the second step is reliance, refuge, you know. And the second part of the second step is now where you have compassion for those you harmed. So you think of the baby. Due to their karma, sure, but I did that out of my ignorance. I harmed them and they had to be, you know, taken out twice. The little body got mangled, mustn't be cool. It was only 12 weeks, but it was something, there was a mind there. There was some senses of, you know, there, must have been suffering. So you have compassion. You have compassion for those you harmed. Your boyfriend you cheated, the rats you've killed, the mice you've killed, the, you know, whatever. You think of the sentient beings. I must regret for their sake. I must purify now for their sake. The first one's for your sake. It's really crucial to get this distinction. And then if you're brave enough, you can have compassion for those who've harmed you. Why? Because they will suffer in the future as a result of what they've done to us. If we can't go there, you don't go there. If you can, fantastic. Third step, the remedy. So there's a whole medicine cabinet of remedies. And simply speaking, this is often just simply referred to as the antidote. So you apply the antidote. So if you've regretted killing, one of the antidotes is try and save lives. You go and save a few worms, you release the creatures, you help sick people. They're antidotes. They're opposite to harming, aren't they? But all the actions are like that. If you're regretting lying, make sure in your daily life you especially try to tell the truth. That's an antidote. It's obvious. But there's a very powerful antidote. This third step, all the Lamas praise, this particular meditation practice where you visualize the Buddha in a particular aspect above your crown, and then you visualize, a lot of the meditations we do are just really kind of using your creative imagination, visualizing nectar coming, reciting a mantra, and this is said to be a really potent medicine. All the practices in the Tibetan tradition especially, they talk about any practices where you utilize the Buddha, you visualize the Buddha. Because of the power of enlightened beings, they're super, super powerful. They're very potent medicines, that's what they say. That's the third step. You apply the antidote. You do this particular meditation practice and the visualization and the recitation of the mantra. Then the fourth step, as Kyabje Lama Rinpoche says, is the most important. The resolve, the determination to change. This is huge, it's obvious. If you've got an old habit and you regret it because you're sick of the suffering, you then have compassion if you're bad-mouthing your boyfriend. You have compassion for your boyfriend. Then you do the practice. But you've got to end with a decision. You've got to try to change. If I don't try to change, then you'll never change. You've got to say, I will try my best for 24 hours. Let's start with 24 hours, not to bad-mouth Ed for that period. And when you make that clear decision, you're likely to keep it, This is the crucial fourth step. You've got to make a decision. So maybe you can't say, I won't badmouth him even for 24 hours. Maybe you start with saying 5 hours. And you take it incrementally. You make clear decisions to yourself for your sake and his. I will not do this. I will do that. You make decisions. And when we make decisions, we will tend to do it. And that grows. That grows. That grows every day. So, of course, if you've taken vows, then here you'd reiterate your main vows. You can definitely say, I will not kill. So that means that'll protect you the next day. It's like they're on your shoulder. When you see a creature, you'll make sure you don't kill. And then what that does is deepen the habit of not killing in your mind. It's like doing push-ups. You keep getting better at it. It's the same with your mind. Every thought counts. So you're digging ever deeper the groove in your mind to not kill. That'll protect you every day. And then next life, you'll wake up with not a single thought to kill. You'll purify those habits. And that's a really major point. It's a really massive point, actually. If we look into this life, look into the world, we can see most humans, forget animals, most humans kill something. Our world, Christians, for example, and I was taught this, God made the creatures for our benefit. They don't have a soul. He provided us with these creatures, including to eat them. I mean, that's interesting teaching. It's not Buddhist. So that's how we think of animals, We think of either they're pests and they harm us, so we kill them. But it doesn't matter because they don't have a soul. That's the logic, and that's coming from Christianity. I don't know what Muslims or Jews say, I don't know. But obviously they're similar. Because, Jews kill animals. Muslims kill animals for food. It's the same logic, I think. They haven't got souls, so it's okay. That is absolutely not the Buddhist view. He doesn't talk about soul, he talks about their consciousness. They've got a mind and they don't want suffering. And due to their past karma, they're born as an ant, as a rat, as a fish, as a chicken. So try not to harm any living beings. So it's an unusual, on this planet, I think it's an unusual thing to wake up in this life with no thought to kill. Very special. Very unusual. The majority of humans kill. The majority of religions say it's okay to kill. Scientists, and that's coming very much from the Christian, the Judeo-Christian history, isn't it? Scientists, their logic for why it's okay to kill, and this is maybe changing a bit now, is because they haven't got brains. They don't feel the suffering. This is changing these days more and more. So it's quite an interesting point. And let's face it, the reason we kill, attachment is for food, aversion is for the other creatures, the rats and the cockroaches and things. So to not kill is quite unusual on the planet. And that's certainly coming from the Buddha's one. So if you've got a vow not to kill, every day you reiterate that vow, it protects you, and then it increases the habit in your mind not to kill, and even purifies the likely possibility of meeting sentient beings whom you're forced to kill. I can say with certainty, these years I've been a Buddhist, I've never yet once, even when in India, in the rainy season, it's like Jurassic Park, kind of bombarded with these creatures. Even still, I've never yet found a situation all these years where I feel I've been forced to kill. It's kind of powerful. That's the benefit of vows, Or like my friend always quotes, my friend, her little boy, is now 14. When he was 3, and just taking the lice out of his head, he was crying with compassion for the lice, And he's like 40-something now. He's never killed a living being. We can deduce from that he's lived in vows of not killing. That's the consequence of next life. And this is the thing about this life. So the main karmic result of non-killing, of killing, is you get an animal rebirth. But for us, in our case, we got a human rebirth, which means it's a fruit of non-killing. But look at most humans, and we have the other 3 residual results of killing. We have a tendency to kill. We get killed or die young, or we get sick. They're the 3 other residual results of the habit of killing. We might have a human birth as a result of non-killing, but we have the habit to keep killing because we haven't lived in vows of non-killing. We get killed or die young, or we get sick. They're the 3 consequences. The environmental result, the experience similar to the cause, and the intention or action similar to the cause. So we've got them from, and look at the world. Look at the world, Just among humans, forget animals. Look at the humans have a tendency to kill, most humans, and it's acceptable in our culture, most humans. That's tragic. That's from past lives, and this is the worst one. As Lama Zopa says, this is the worst one, because every time you keep killing, that's the major one. It's the most harmful. When you're programming your mind with killing, and then when you die, unless you do something about it, that karma will be triggered, and you go back to the lower realms, and you've lost the plot again. That's the worst one, the habit to keep doing it. The second one is it gets done to you. And we think that's the worst, of course, but it's not. To do it again is the worst one. So the second one is it happens to you. Now look at the world. Look at people who die young. The second one, the experience similar to the cause of past killing, is you get killed or you die young. Look at the world. I think if you did research, we don't do this research, that the number of beings who won the lottery, sort of, so fortunate, who got their mind went to a human womb at conception, but who died before they were born. That's called a fetus. That's called miscarriages and abortions, isn't it? I would think if we did the research, I wouldn't be surprised if we find that there are more people who get a human birth who die before they're born than those who get a human birth and get born. You hear my point? Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm just, not even abortions, but even just miscarriages. That's called dying young. That's the result of killing, that you get a human birth, you win the lottery, but you die young. You don't even get born yet, you've got no chance, the karma runs out. Then think of the babies who die. Think of 5-year-olds who die, 10-year-olds, healthy sportsmen, drop dead on the basketball court. Car accidents, or things we call for no medical reason. Just the Buddhist view is your petrol tank of killing, non-killing, runs out, and you're dead. You can see that. Then look at the one of environmental result. Environmental result. Look at us with allergies now. It's the commonest thing. Every nutritional label is so complex now. Because look at the allergies. That's called environmental karma. This is the result of killing. But you have allergies to peanuts, or to the air, or to the fruit, or to that food, or this thing. More and more neurotic, aren't we? Look at this. Not being rude. This is how we are. That's called environmental result of killing. Whereas look at Warren Buffett. All his life, he should be dead years ago. He's still fat and healthy, nearly 90, living on his hamburgers and his Coca-Cola. His daughter hasn't seen water pass his lips in 90 years. And he's fit and healthy. That's the fruit of non-killing. So strong in his petrol tank, it hasn't run out yet. That's environmental karma of non-killing. No, sorry, being healthy is environmental result of non-killing, and living a long life is the experience similar to the cause. So look at the humans who die young, who get killed. Not forget war zones, just car accidents and sickness. Look at it. That's environmental karma. And the experience similar to the cause. All of non-killing. They're the result of harming sentient beings, particularly non-killing, particularly killing. So non-killing, the first result, get a human body. Second result, you wake up in this life with no thought to kill, like that boy. Third result, you don't get killed or die young. Fourth result, you're fat and healthy. Whatever you eat nourishes you. So that's pretty fortunate. Look at the world, It's pretty amazing. And all the results, all actions we do have all these 4 results. All actions have all these 4 results. Because we are the creators of the universe. There's no accident. There's no random event out there. Everything is our karmic appearance, as Lama Zopa says, It's hard to hear this one all the time, got to remember it. So the purification process is a way of counteracting that. As Lama Yeshe says, the power of purification is the power of our regret, which is mental. The power of our remedy and compassion, which is mental. The power of our resolve on this one. Regret, reliance, but the power of compassion and reliance, the power of the remedy, and the power of resolve. The more our mind engages in anything we do, it's obvious, the more you dig those grooves in your mind. The more you practice piano, the better you become at piano. The more you chip away at that big tree with an axe, the more the tree will come down. If you just tip on it once a week, it's not going to happen. If you seriously regret and seriously have compassion and seriously have resolve and seriously have whatever, all of them. That's what purification is. Because there's nothing in here that's set in stone. There's no bad me in there. It's logic, in Buddhist view, logic. Karma is done by the mind. And Lama Zopa says we're insane not to do this practice every day. It's for our benefit. Our benefit. Our benefit. So if you do this and live according to vows and try to be a nice person and do your best and be kind to a few people and do a bit of practice every day, you have a perfect life. You're sowing all the right seeds for the future, and that's the key job we have to get used to thinking about. You've got your garden now, and the garden is a great analogy. We know what's in the garden now is the fruit of what we did in the past. So we have to keep sowing new seeds to bring the future. That is a powerful analogy, and we know that with gardens. We don't just rest on our laurels and just eat up all the veggies and put the flowers in vases and forget to sow more. No, we'll end up with nothing. And that's part of what we do in our lives. We think, oh, aren't I lucky? I'm so fortunate, we say. I'm so fortunate. I get jobs when I want. I'm healthy. Yeah, you are, but you did the work. You better keep doing it, baby. It's not enough to say you're fortunate. You just lose it all up and you'll run out. got to keep studying, keep learning the vows, keep taking more vows, sowing the seeds for the future. It's ongoing, you know. It's very practical. Any questions about that, please?
The Miller Ripper story, I mean, he had
What's been out?
the Miller Ripper story where he had killed a lot of people.
Yes.
But he was able to purify his karma in
That's
his
right.
lifetime.
That's right.
So, let's say, for example, by physical activity or
What, darling?
by physical activity or working on our neurosis, would that purify karma as well? I mean, what Miller Ripper was
I know, but what, so, okay, you heard the 4 steps I'm describing.
Yes.
Well, the first one is you regret you've done bad things. The second is you have compassion and you try, and you rely upon the Buddha. The third is this particular one, you do this practice, but also in your daily life, you do all those things you're just saying. That's what practice is. You try to live in the vows, you try to be nice. They're the actions that are creating new seeds and purifying the rubbish ones. Of course it is. But this is a very particular practice, a meditation practice, that's said to be very beneficial at the end of the day. But the rest of the day, everything you're doing is increasing the purification and increasing the merit you're creating, isn't it? So the more powerful your bodhicitta and the more powerful your realization of emptiness, and what happened to Milarepa, he was able to purify very quickly because his mind was so powerful. Do you understand? Absolutely. What else, people? Yeah. Andrew.
Kind of a random one.
Go on.
Is there like a hierarchy of like animals and rebirths? Like, is a snake better than a bird? Better than
I mean, of course, you could argue. They don't speak about it that way, but you can really argue that. I mean, it's fairly evident in terms of, you know, for example, the karma we all have, which is reputation, the third one, of how you're seen by others. So clearly, in our world, it's probably preferable to be a doggy-woggy than a snake. Why? Because look at how people treat snakes. We want to kill them instantly. We hate them. We're panic-stricken. Look at my point. So if you want to have a happy life, you better be born a dog, baby. If you want a rat, I mean, who likes rats? Just the word makes us freak out. Who wants to be born a rat? So even from that point of view, first of all, that point of view of the way you're seen by others, then it's definitely a hierarchy. You can say that for sure. And it's pretty arbitrary. You know, we adore poodles but hate rats. So from the point of view of wanting to have a nice life, comfy life, it's better to be a poodle than a rat. But on the other hand, you can talk about, certainly in terms of intelligence and things, so we can certainly say, it's not meant to be arrogant. Some animals, not intelligent so much. Some animals can be more intelligent than others. So there could be more suffering. I mean, it's talking about how elephants suffer and have compassion and things. Or a little tiny baby bug or a little kind of, you know, perhaps less. But it doesn't mean you never treat them less. You try to have compassion for all of them. But there's certainly a hierarchy like that. Some births obviously are more suffering than others. Come on. Clearly that's obvious. I mean, I think about just bees, for example, that mummy bee. She's a baby machine. I mean, she just pours out millions of babies, just sits there giving birth to babies. I can't imagine that's a very comfy job to have. And look at the karma that creates it, you know. So there's some suffering. I mean, animal, or even the gross level of suffering for animals obviously is being abused. I mean, look at the animals now suffering in all the abattoirs and things, and the way chickens are fed, and the monstrous way we misuse animals for food. I mean, that's really a terrible suffering life. Unbelievable. Look at the way fish are caught. Look at the way crabs and lobsters are cooked, boiled alive. So from the point of view of suffering, the third karma, how you're treated, there are clearly some that are more suffering than others. From the point of view of your own mind, there are some that are more suffering than others. I'd say being a spider is a heavier mind than being a poodle's mind. I don't know. I mean, spiders need to kill their food. They need to kill it. That's a heavy mind, to have a mind that wants to kill. So yeah, you can talk like that. And the thing is, Andrew, this view about the mind, which we're going to go into in more detail tomorrow, which, as you know, you've heard enough and we're implying it today, this refers to all living beings. Karma refers to all living beings. So there's clearly a spectrum of really suffering lives, not so suffering lives, really heavy minds, less heavy minds. So a little doggy with floppy ears who runs around helping sick people is obviously a less suffering mind than a creature who wants to kill and eat beings alive. It's sort of evident. Do you understand my point? In that sense, absolutely, of course it is. Differences, of course there are. Do you understand? Who else? Questions?
How can a spider ever clear its karma if it's...
Not as a spider, it can't. Even as an animal. This is the Buddhist point. Okay. Let's talk about this for a second. We talked about suffering, the suffering of suffering. And we talked about exclusively, we didn't go much into the experience of it, we're talking about it, of the bad things happening to us in our human life. But the bigger picture point of view in Buddhism, as I'm indicating, there's this realms of existence. So there's a whole bunch of sentient beings in the Buddhist view, the Buddhist worldview. They've got 3 levels of sentient beings. You've got the form, this is very much come from the Hindu tradition. You've got beings who are so subtle, their minds are so subtle from much deep meditation that they don't even have any gross kind of physicality. Their minds are in the depth of absorption of the subtlest meditation. So then you've got other beings similar to that but a bit grosser. They're the form realm and the formless realm. That's due to that's meditation. And then you've got the desire realm, which we're in, which is driven by attachment. And so in this desire realm, you've got a spectrum. It's like 6 different suburbs. And the suburbs differ in terms of from happiness to suffering. They're the best suburbs and the worst suburbs. So the best suburbs in samsara, in the desire realm for the Buddha, is what they call the God realms. There's a couple of those. And that's the equivalent, I think, it seems to be the equivalent of what the Muslims call paradise, the Christians call heaven, and God knows what the Jews call it. If they even have one, I don't know. I don't know. So the other one is, so that's called the God realms. So that's the best happiness you'll get. Bliss, incredible joy and bliss. The mind is totally blissful, and your physical energy is subtle light. And that's the fruit of lots of being a good person. But it's a kind of useless rebirth, because you're so blissed out, you think it's forever. I mean, Jesus says it's forever. The Buddha says not, it's not. But eventually that pactual tank of virtue will run out. You've still got ego grasping. You haven't realised emptiness, so you go back down to the lower realms again. The next one is human, which is the best of a bad lot. We clearly don't have bodies of light. It's evident. We have bags of bones for bodies. So clearly there's much more suffering as a human. But the one advantage of being a human, Buddha says, is we've got access to our intelligence. Access to our intelligence and access to, in other words, our ability to change. That's the key. Access to virtue, kindness, empathy, and access to our ability to make choices, to change. That's the miracle. They're our saving grace. And we can even see among most humans, it's hard to exercise these. Look at the human realm. It's disgraceful. Get my point? That's the miracle. Then further down the spectrum, you've got the 3 so-called lower realms. Each of them is an expression of one of the 3 main delusions, because all of these are mental states coming along with a certain level of physicality. So the next one was the expression of the most primordial, the deepest ignorance, is the animal realm. So there, using this model of the mind that Buddha uses, which we're going to talk into in more detail tomorrow, they only can access the delusions. They've got ego grasping, anger, attachment, anger, and all the other delusions, but they're 1 billion times heavier than ours. And the only reason is because they can't access their virtue. They've got virtuous karmic seeds in their mind. They've been humans in the past, but they can't access those because the weeds of their delusions are growing so strongly. You get my point? So, as we say, leopards can't change their spots, you know. So that's the real suffering of an animal mind. I remember one time one of my friends, Jane, told me that Rinpoche said, and I'm sure he said it many times, this is years ago, that if we could just for a moment have a direct experience of the mind of our precious little dog, the mental suffering would be so unbearable, we would never want to waste another moment of this precious human life. And that's really very extraordinary for us. We never think like that. You know, we just don't see the suffering at all. That's really intense. If Rinpoche is right, which is the experience of the great yogis and the meditators, to see the minds of an animal suffering. It's the ignorance, the terrifying ignorance, which brings enormous attachment, enormous aggression, enormous anger, enormous fear. Because the key characteristic of all the delusions, which we'll talk about tomorrow, is fear. Unbelievable fear. It's the worst suffering. Which is why, as all the lamas say, when you realise emptiness, you have no fear. Fear has gone. We'll talk about this tomorrow. We'll talk about the meditation technique and some of the qualities we'd have if we had single border concentration. So further down the spectrum, you've got even more suffering. And the animal realm includes all the elephants to the tiny bugs, to the dust mites, to the bees, or whatever you like. Clearly there's more of them. The next level, even more suffering, are these disembodied beings called spirits. There's a whole range of them, and they're mainly the energy of attachment because of unbelievable grasping and attachment. And their physical energies are, like air, really. Their minds are conjoined with air. They're spirits, ghosts. There's millions of this kind of creatures, sentient beings. And this suffering is even worse. Then further down, the worst suffering of all, the predominance of anger energy is literally called the hell realms. Literally, same. So this is why I like to say, and it must be so, if you look at all the different people on the planet over the centuries, different philosophies, different religions, different viewpoints. But it seems to me, certainly from a spiritual point of view, spiritual philosophical point of view, there are many things that humans have observed that are similar. But it's just a different interpretation, isn't it? Completely different interpretations. So it seems to me Christians, Muslims, Jews, I don't know what the Aborigines, I don't know what they've observed, but they talk very differently. There's many similar things that sentient beings have observed, but the interpretations of them and why, the whats and the whys and the wherefores, they're the very differences. So Buddhism has got the same view about these different realms of existence, but they're not permanent. You're not punished. You're not sent there by anybody. You send yourself there. You create, no, not even send, there's no place. Can't climb in an aeroplane and go to a hell realm, you know. It's a state of mind coming on with a certain level of physicality. It's got its own karmic appearances. It's like, what do they say in science fiction? You have this kind of, what do they say, different dimensions. Different dimensions. Exactly the same as that. So it's karmic appearances due to past karma. You see things a certain way, things appear a certain way, and you know, and they're all real sentient beings. So as Lama Zopa says, hell being isn't some being who's waiting there saying, no, so hell is not some place where the devil is waiting saying, ha ha, I'm waiting for Lama Yeshe. No, it's the manifestation of the negative energy of that sentient being. And the human realm is exactly the same. We are the creators of from past actions of what appears to us, how we experience things, all our conceptuality, what we are, what we think, how we're seen and treated. All of this has come from our past actions. In this sense, quite literally, Buddha is saying we create all these realities. Not in a cosmic sense, it's an evolutionary sense over many lifetimes. And it all comes from conceptuality, from misconceptions, from delusions. That's why if you cut the root delusion, finally, you're out of here. You've got more work to do, but you can never fall back again. That's what Buddha says. So, conclusion, born as a spirit, an animal realm, or a hell being, the suffering is so unbearable that there's no millisecond of any release from it, and there's no option to make any, there's no access to your virtue, there's no access to any intelligence. Even you can say some animals really create some virtue, dogs especially, like domestic dogs, isn't it? Some are trained to help people. You can hear wonderful stories about how animals help, you know. Those are imprints in there, but you can't learn it. I mean, you can't go to, increase it. You just got an instinct there from past karma to do it, you know. Whereas as humans, if we use it properly, that's the saving grace, is access to our intelligence, our virtue, to think things through and break down and change our mind. That's the miracle. And the only rebirth that is useful for that is the human realm. It's the best of a bad lot, basically. That's how they talk. So the point is, though, the infinite number of karmic seeds a spider as a sentient being, as a human, as an animal, as a human, whatever in the past has created, are in their mind. They don't get lost. But you can't grow them and you can't access them as a spider. You just have to. That's why a major way from the Buddhist perspective to help animals and help creatures, you can't get them to practice virtue. You can stop them from creating negativity. Like if you can stop the spider from killing, how kind of you to do this, but then the spider won't eat its dinner, you know. I remember what Lama Zopa taught when he was a little kid. He killed the fly for the spider. He didn't say it's out of compassion, but obviously it would have been out of compassion. He wanted the spider not to have to kill the fly. He'd rather kill the fly instead and take on the negative karma. But he said the spider didn't eat the fly. He wants to kill it as well. Do you understand? So then anyway, all these imprints are there, and all the imprints from virtuous karma. So the way to help animals is, certainly Buddhism has great respect for the Tibetan Buddhists especially, of the power of words, the power of mantras, the power of the words of the Buddhas, the power of the mantras representing love, compassion, wisdom, all these different Sanskrit mantras. Just by hearing them, they say, can leave strong imprint in that mind of the creatures. So, don't just kill your mouse. Put it in a safe place. Let it hear mantras, keep it safe so its mind calms down. They can die peacefully. Hearing the words of the Buddha is the most powerful way you can help. In Lama Zopa's book, How to Help People at the Time of Death, it's coming out next year. Wisdom has published it as sort of a hardback, but it's coming out, a new version of it. It's coming out next year as a paperback. And it's really, really helpful. Extremely helpful. A whole handbook on how to help people at the time of death beforehand as well. And you can, at the moment, you can download it as a PDF. So if you want that address, you can write it up on the wall, or I can tell you now as you wish, whatever you want. If you want it, you gotta ask me. It's extremely helpful. So in that book, all the ways to help your grandma, help dying people, help animals. There's so many things you can do to help their minds, so they get a decent, rebirth. That's the idea. So any more questions? Okay. 5 o'clock nearly. I think it's enough, don't you think? I think it's enough. So just finish with a 5-minute little meditation. It's relaxing, and we're going to talk about this tomorrow. I'm going to read you from some of Lama Yeshe's teachings on Mahamudra, this lovely meditation on how you get to realise emptiness. But the starting point is meditating on your mind, just observing your mind. So just be very natural. Sit, if you're in a chair, like me, don't slump into the chair. Sit up straight, okay? With your feet firmly on the ground. If you're cross-legged, then sit nicely the best you can, comfortably, with your back straight. Hands like this if you like. Gesture or mudra. Like this, thumbs touching, less underneath, right on top. Or just here, as you wish. Your back, your body upright, and your muscles relaxed. So keep your body upright, but your muscles relaxed. Flop your muscles. But don't slump your body. Keep your body upright. That's important. So you have your head slightly tilted forward, chin tucked in, a little bit. If you have your head thrust back, the mind gets agitated. Then your jaw relaxed, the lips slightly apart, the tip of the tongue behind the top teeth, just near the palate. And this is found by all the great meditators over the centuries who meditate day and night. This prevents you from dribbling, very practical, or from swallowing your spit apparently. The tip of the tongue behind the top teeth, resting there. Kind of feels odd, but it's practical. We're only going to do it for 4 minutes, so don't worry. Then your eyes, again, all the yogis, the great meditators say, the ones who meditate all day, whose minds are quite subtle, for them it's really good to have your eyes open. Then the light comes in, so you keep your mind sharp. But most of us have no concentration whatsoever. We'll just get distracted. So have your eyes lightly closed. But the danger is, of course, especially because we're tired, we'll just go to sleep, so watch that like a hawk. So I'll just do 4 quality minutes. So have your eyes looking down, as if you're looking along your nose, okay? So settle into this position because your body doesn't meditate. Your mind does. This position, so not to go to sleep. Let's do short one. 4 minutes, 4 quality minutes, okay? I did a whole retreat with Lama Yeshe. He made us do Mahamudra meditation, and he got us to do 5-minute sessions. And it's really good because you're really alert, and 5 quality minutes is much better than 20 minutes spacing out, We'll talk more about meditation tomorrow. So now what we're going to do, the job we're going to do for 4 minutes, is simply pay attention to one thing. A typical meditation the Buddha taught is you pay attention to the breath. That's easy because the breath is there and you can locate it. We also have visualization meditations, don't we? But here we're going to simply pay attention, basically, to whatever pops up in your mind. It feels kind of peculiar, but don't worry. And so with the determination, strong determination, just think, I'm going to pay attention to whatever pops up in my mind, just like watching it. No judgment, no analysis, no conversation, and try not to space out. So every time your mind wanders off, and it will for certain in that 4 minutes, you catch it like a hawk and you bring it back to the breath, to the mind. You bring it back to simply pay attention to the thoughts. No worry about what it is, just attempt to do that. And you check yourself, every time you space out, bring it back to the object, bring it back to the mind, okay? So with strong determination, pay attention to whatever pops up in your mind. Just watch. Pay attention to the mind. Don't space out. Keep your mind sharp, clear, focused. Just your thoughts. Pay attention. Let the thoughts come and go. Doesn't matter. Don't get stuck on them. That'll do, just a quality few minutes. Just train the mind. A few minutes like this every morning. Training the mind. We're training the mind. Don't expect a magical feeling, that's not the issue. Don't expect to relax, that's not the point. Don't expect your thoughts to go away, that's not the point. And it's not an alternative to a pill. It's a training, you're training yourself like riding a bike. You've got to start somewhere and you train and you get better every day. So what we're training to do in this kind of meditation is to get concentration, to focus the mind. Why do you want to do that? So in your daily life you can sort out what the hell's going on in your mind. You can focus on it. Don't just focus on the outside world. Focus on your mind. It's training your mind to concentrate. Long-term benefit, amazing. We'll discuss that tomorrow. It's training. So fantastic, we just began the training, you know, it's fantastic. So to see. So we just delight in what we've done all day and last night. Seed we planted, listening, thinking, analysing, contemplating, discussing. All these seeds have gone in, all these thoughts have gone in, nothing's gone astray, that's amazing. So may we nourish these seeds from this moment forward. With our virtue, with our effort, with our practice from this second, doing whatever we do, to help us develop our amazing potential. So it can be a benefit to others. Kewaji nyu dudai lama sangye drogyune drowachi kyang malupa deisala gopasho Jangcho, Semcho, Rinpoche, Ma Kye Panam Ke Gyuchi, Kye Panyam Pa, Ne Payam, Gong Ne Gong Du, Rabasho. Okay, so if you're going to come back tomorrow, even if you don't, you can do it if you like, it's homework, okay? And always have homework. When you hit the pillow, first, hit the pillow before you go to sleep, make a strong decision to see your dreams as dreams, which helps us kind of loosen the grip on daily life, you know. We see everything as so concrete, so solid, so real, you know. So by practicing thinking, seeing your dreams as dreams while you're dreaming, oh, it's only a dream, we'll think, you know. grasping at it less. It's a good practice to lessen the grasping at daily life, or the dramas, you know. And the second piece of homework is you make the decision that when you wake up in the morning, if you wake up in the morning, you delight. Wow, I'm still alive. I can't believe it. My petrol tank of morality hasn't run out yet. I mustn't waste this precious life. I'll come along, come to the class, have a cup of tea, listen some more, and see if I can take some more tools to help me develop my amazing potential. That's it. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Goodbye.